less than 200. We have two Chinese restaurants. One is independent, one is Eastway. Now, you know how many Chinese restaurants in Charlotte? Asian restaurants? You don't know it? We have 286 Asian restaurants in Charlotte. You know what's the population, Asian population in Charlotte? You have to read my newspaper. Yeah, you got to read my newspaper. We have 55,000 Asians in Charlotte. 40 years ago, we have less than 200. Now 55. You can see, first page of my newspaper, I wrote it about the DNC conventions. The Asians in North Carolina is the most fast-growing ethnic groups in USA. Last 10 years, the Asians grow 85%. About 40 years ago, we have less than 4,800 Asians in North Carolina. 4,800 Asians in North Carolina. You know how many now? Gosh, we are the Democratic Scott. Bring some newspaper over there. Yeah, please. Please. Let's know it. Let's know it. We are educated. Okay? We know how, who we're going to target it, how many population in the United States. Now, we have 215,000 Asians in North Carolina. So, I started my newspaper about 20 years ago, 1993. I started it because in North Carolina, and then we had a lot of American majority, and then they don't know Asians. We have a lot of program for Mongolian spots. Okay? So anyhow, that's what I started. Now about 20 years later, when I start the newspaper in Charlotte, we don't have any Asian policemen. None. None. When I started, we don't have any social workers. None. Today, I asked them, the Asian population in this area is what? 3.8%, and that you have to match the population here. So we have now over exactly 32 Asian policemen in Charlotte. He's a lawyer, right? 32 Asian policemen. And then about 6 years ago, I couldn't see any Asian anchor, woman or man. I sent a letter to all the TV stations. You got to have only at least one. Started. So Channel 18, they started 18 years later. We are Democrat. Religiously, I'm Republican, but I'm Democrat because I served, chairman of the Asian Pacific Caucus of North Carolina, Democratic Party. I served in 1985 to 1986. I started. Now, okay, Democratic, that's the party. They're gonna appoint more than any other president for United States history. They appointed Asians. You know it, right? So that's what we go for. Democratic. Here, I want to encourage all other person to participate in the vote. Participate in political process. If we don't, I don't think we don't have a future for Asians. I started this newspaper, this library, and then when I was young, if I didn't read the books, and then my father, he didn't give me any support. So I read the books. And then when I come to this country, I saw Asian people, they didn't bring any books. So I wrote a letter to my father. Father, we have a problem. Asian people have a problem. They just don't read the books. My father, he didn't ask anything. First time in my life, he asked me one thing. He said, son, you have a job to do. I want you to collect the books. Someday, I want you to open the Asian library. I took his advice seriously. So last 4 years, I accumulated 132,000 books. Books are free. You don't have to pay anything. this section, I rented a vet clinic, $7,200 here. I expanded. So 1 year, each month, rent is about $15,000 here. I utilized this one as a library. Duke University, they have 8,400 libraries, 84,000 Asian books. I have 132,000 Asian books. I did the Duke University. But Anthony Fox, he designated this place as the largest Asian private library in USA. This is the one.
Anthony Fox is the mayor.
Yeah, and he's the mayor. So here, when I was young, my father asked me, in this world, and then we have three kinds of people. One kind of people, when he passed away, people, they said, I'm glad he's gone. It's so sad. Second one, he said, when he passed away, only family members and close friends, they can cry. Other person, they have apathy. Number three, those person having passed away, not only family member they cry, whole community they cry. They're going to say, what are we going to do without him? Think about it. What kind of person you want to be? Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hello. I would like to be the first to formally welcome you to Charlotte and to North Carolina. Charlotte has been my home for the past couple years, but North Carolina has always been my home, well, at least since I was very young. Charlotte, North Carolina is very rich in culture. It's a very rich and cultured city embedded in the South. Therefore, we bring Southern drawl, Southern hospitality, and Southern cuisine to the table. Either it be the artistic views of the Blumenthal Theater, the Actors Theater of Charlotte, the Levine Museum of the New South, or the simplistic reality of the Little Rock Greenway, McAlpine Park, Reedy Creek Park, or the vast progression of technology and state-of-the-art facilities like Caroline's Medical Center, Presbyterian Hospital, the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. For the past couple years, Charlotte has been my home. I couldn't imagine myself anywhere else. I have opened my arms and embraced everything that Charlotte has to offer. I began with APA for Progress through the help of Curtis Chin and ICASU, East Coast Asian American Student Union. I originally joined ICASU to learn more about myself through the Campus Ambassador Program, but instead, I learned and gained the knowledge to further advance myself and the Asian and Pacific American population. Secondly, Mr. Curtis Chin came to our school and asked if I could show a presentation about the late Vincent Chin. This documentary opened my eyes to the vast Asian American activism there is. Later on, I became a leader for the Charlotte viewing of the Vincent Chin 30, Standing Up Then and Now, which was a great success, which included a proclamation from the city of Charlotte. As you continue through the Democratic National Convention festivities for the next couple of days, I want you to open your arms and embrace your home. Yes, your home. Charlotte is a southern city with southern charm, but like no other, Charlotte is always home.
Thank you so much. That was our super volunteer, Rob Mady, who's been absolutely instrumental in putting this together. It just made me smile when he said Mr. Curtis Chin. So I feel like so old. And when I heard that, I said, okay, ma'am. My name is Nina Ahmed, and I'm one of the board members of AAPI. That's Asian Pacific Americans for Progress. Curtis and I actually go way back. Before it was AAPI, it was Asian Pacific Americans for Dean, and we came out of the Dean campaign. and transformed into Asian Pacific Americans for Progress. And as you can see from our program, it talks about our mission, it talks about, what are we trying to achieve. And basically we want progressive APA and allies to be involved in promoting and understanding APA issues and advocating for them. And so, as you see from the program, I'm not going to reiterate all of this and take up time. What are the things we do? What is our history? And who are our board members? I just want to say thank you to Mr. Chun and the Asian Library, Lisa Chun and the Chun family for hosting us. I want to thank Rob here, and Ricky Long. Where's Ricky? Who has been absolutely fantastic. 4 a.m. email last night telling us how the transition from the convention center to here would be. Appreciate all of that. And we have our list of official co-sponsors. I just wanted to share with you, the program today has many fascinating presenters and trainers. And you're going to hear from their experience how we can motivate and get people engaged. Our biggest issue with APA folks is to make sure they feel they have a seat at the table. And that's what APAP is about, is to make sure we create those paths of access. We show people what are the tools, we actually engage people and get people involved. And it takes a one-on-one as well as these kinds of venues to create that kind of feel where everybody has a stake and they can engage and make sure that their voices are heard. So without further ado, we'll start the program. And our first trainer is going to be, who is our first? Christine. Okay, Christine Chen. And all our bios are in there, so we won't waste your time, and you can read up. But Christine is fabulous, and she has another lovely program after this, so we can eat and dine and be merry at the APIA vote. So here's Christine.
Hi, guys. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and give you a quick and dirty overview in terms of where we're at and where Asian American Pacific Islanders really can make a difference. As many of you have heard through the 2010 census, we really have grown quite a bit. What I've been telling a lot of people, 1 in 4 congressional districts have as AAPI populations, that's 5% or more. 600 cities and municipalities also have a community that large, so no longer can elected officials and parties afford to ignore us. But the reality is, we're a family here, so I'm also going to give you the hard truth in terms of what we actually need to do. So the next slide I actually want to first point out is I really believe, and Toby had also, our co-chair of API Vote has announced this many times, this year in 2012 will be the largest voter engagement program that the Asian American Pacific Islander community has seen, whether it's partisan or nonpartisan. Alone, just in the nonprofit community, we actually have activities in all these states that are actually highlighted. There's probably going to be about $2.5 or $3 million poured into the nonprofit community to actually get more of our folks registered and turned out and educated in protecting our vote. But at the same time, what we're also telling the political parties and those that are invested interests is that there's not enough engagement and reaching out to our community. And so for those of you here, this is where you also can make a difference. One of the areas where we really need to focus on is actually also voter registration. Here are some of the key areas and some figures that we've actually pulled together with the New Organizing Institute Education Fund. Overall, we have 55% that are actually registered across the country. In New York alone, you see the number as low as 38%. I also highlighted in terms of Virginia and Florida and Nevada, some of the numbers that we actually need to reach. Really, right after this, what I'm really asking all of you is whether it's your organization's doing voter registration activities or even plugging into the existing programs that are happening with all of our different nonprofit partners. September 25th is the National Voter Registration Day. The Secretary of States have all come together to launch that with all the various progressive partners across the country. So that is the one thing that we really are very much pushing. The next slide actually will go ahead and really talk about what I want to focus on is actually some of the key states where Asian American Pacific Islanders can really play in. We've heard a lot in regards to whether in Ohio, I know there's a couple congressional districts where the races are actually quite tight, especially in Columbus, where a Asian American population there can also make a difference. In Washington State, the governor's race is tighter than ever before, and we've seen that every 4 years. It seems like the Washington State race is always very close, and the population is actually quite large, where we also make a difference. So the next slide is, I'm actually going to go ahead and focus on Florida a little bit. We've seen a growth in terms of Florida, and back in 2010, there were some of the key congressional races where you see some of the population of our community. What's at stake is that not only is it a presidential swing state, but there's also down the ticket. Because of redistricting as well as reapportionment, there's also an additional House race that's been added to that state. The next slide will also show you in a poll that Asian American Justice Center and AAPI Vote had conducted back in April, that Asian Americans in Florida could give Obama a 38-point lead over Romney. This is based on predictions based on what actually happened in 2008, the turnout of our community, and the growth of our community. So that's why it goes back again to why I focus on the next 4 weeks, why we need to focus on voter registration. And then later on, it's all about obviously turnout and protecting the vote of our community, because that actually could help Obama out here in Florida. The next slide will actually show you about Nevada. Here we've actually have a state where there's been a 116% increase of the population. There's also, once again, due to reapportionment, an additional congressional district that's been added, and many 8 state house districts that have competitive races. Over here, and specifically those 2 congressional districts are where they're up for play as well, where we can make a difference. The next slide will actually show you, once again, based on our polling, how Asian Americans can give Obama a 9,000 vote advantage over Romney. Once again, this is based on making sure that we deliver the number of folks that actually turned out last time at the same percentage rate. And then lastly, another example I want to provide to you is in regards to Virginia. I think in Virginia, every year we've actually been able to prove how the AAPI population has continued to be an important part of the electoral makeup. Especially when you look at the Senate race about 6 years ago, and once again, this Senate race that we're facing is going to be very tight. Back then, the election was only won by 1%, and the Asian American Pacific Islander was 3% of the Virginia electorate. So these are clear examples of why our community can make a difference in the various elections. So with that, that's really a very quick overview in terms of like some of the specific states I wanted to point out to you. I have obviously a lot more data and information that we can actually provide to you, especially later on. I'll be coming back at the end of the day when we actually do state breakouts. From there, I can actually talk to you more specifically about specific states and what the numbers and what we actually need to do to really turn out the AAPI community. Okay, thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Parag Mehta, and I am going to be the first workshop trainer. Just to explain how today's going to work, we decided to do something a little bit different than most trainings. Look, the truth of the matter is, teaching you about campaigns can be like a semester-long course at a college or university. We're going to try and do it all in the next 4 hours. And the way we're going to do it today is we're using a speed dating concept. Anybody here ever done speed dating? Come on, Asian, don't lie. Okay, so you go to speed dating, you get 5 minutes with a person, and you get to check out that person, see if you click, and then you get to move on to the next one. Except this time, you're going to get to speed date us, the trainers. So we're going to focus on 3 big categories: message, organization, and money. Message, organization, and money. Those are the 3 pillars of good and effective campaigns. And each one of us will come and present for 15 minutes. We'll try and make room in our presentations for you to ask questions. And then at the end, you get to pick not which one of us you want to date, although we're open to that, some of us. But you get to pick which one of us you want to work with on our area of expertise. So if you want to do messaging, if you want to do fundraising, if you want to do field organizing, come and talk to us during the state breakout. So, with that said, I'm Parag. Parag Mehta, and I am a political strategist. I worked at the DNC for many years as Director of External Communications. And what I want to tell you at the very start of this training is something that might be shocking to some of you. And that is, you are not normal. None of you in this room are normal people. You are special people. And I love you, and Jesus probably loves you, but you are not normal people. And here's why. Because normal people don't think about politics as much as you have. You know, there was a study done a few years ago that showed that the average person in America thinks about politics for 5 minutes a month. And you want to hear the really bad news? It's not 5 consecutive minutes. It's 5 total minutes spread out over a month, right? And so by being here at this training and listening to the first 2 presentations, you've already checked your list for the next 6 months, right? But here's why. Before you start to feel superior, as if you're better than them, remember this. That people decide where they want to spend their energy. Some are doing it on their jobs. Some are doing it raising their kids. Some are spending it in their churches or their Boy Scout troops. We choose to spend it here. And I thank you for it because we need your commitment. We're here today spending time with you because we know that good campaigns are not won in the air. They're not won over the radio and over the television and over the airwaves. They're won on the ground. And what we believe real good campaigns are, what the president believes they're about, is they're about activating and mobilizing activists like you. But in order to do that, in order to be successful, we have to remember that A, we're not normal, and B, elections are not about what's here. And that's very hard for us as progressives, I think. You know, working for the Democratic Party, one of the shocking things I found is we tend to talk to voters from here. Have you ever seen the Democratic candidate get up and say, here's my 25-point plan to save Social Security? 25 is too many. You needed to have it in 1 or 2, right? Because the average voter stops listening at a certain point. They have so much of a capacity in that 5 minutes to get our message. So we have to be clear. We have to make it impassioned explanation for our values, and we have to be inspirational. But most of all, we have to remember that voters make their decisions from here. They make a gut decision. They want to hear about our values, and they want to feel like we have the leadership, the right leadership to offer them. So here's my pitch to you. When you go out to the doors, when you talk to voters, when you make those phone calls this year, when you send out those emails, when you write those postcards, when you're sitting at your family reunion or sitting around the dining table and talking to people, when you're at work or on your college campus doing your dorm storms, remember that good messages fundamentally come down to values. It's not about the facts and the figures that make you smarter than them. And by the way, for those of you who come out of the Debating Society of North America and think that the way to win an election is to knock on a voter's door and tell them why they're wrong and hear the facts to prove that I'm right and you're wrong, that doesn't win over hearts or minds, right? You've got to talk about our shared values. What are our common values? So, can anyone give me an example of what's a value? What's a value? Give me an example of a value.
Poverty.
Education.
Relieving poverty. Education is a thing, but what's the
Fairness.
value in education? Justice is a value. Opportunity is a value, right? In education, when we talk about education that's quality for everybody, right? Not a private benefit for the few, but a public benefit for everyone, right? That's about opportunity. Access is a value. What else is a value?
Fairness.
Fairness is a value. What? Compassion is a value, right? George W. Bush exploited that to no end in the 2000 election, right? I want to be a compassionate conservative, right? It turned out he was half right. What else? What are other values?
Justice.
Justice, she said, yeah. Integrity, yeah.
Equality.
What is the greatest value of all? What Neeson saying about it? Right? Love. And as Congressman Keith Ellison from Minnesota, the first Muslim elected to the Congress, says, he says it's the value that Democrats hold the highest and the one we talk about the least, right? What are the values of our community? We come from the Asian American community, we're diverse communities, but what are some of the common values of our community?
Caring.
What?
Caring.
Caring. Caring for one another, right?
Yeah.
We believe in this idea of, yes, personal responsibility, but also community responsibility. We have a responsibility to take care of one another. That's a common value. Investing in our children, right? You know, as we say in the Indian culture, for mothers and fathers, their children are everything, and for children, their parents are everything, right? This idea of this bond that we prioritize above all others, right? Caring for our children. And really,
your IRA in the Asian world.
that's right. They are your IRA, right? Because we have children in the idea that that's our protection from the nursing home. Those are the people that are going to take care of us. My grandfather used to say that children are the investment, grandchildren are the dividends, because you're the ones who are going to take care of me when I'm old, right? So it's actually Let's make it broader. The value is future, right? A secure future, a safe future, a stable future. What else? What are other Asian American community values? What are the values in your campus?
Diversity.
Diversity is a value, right? The fact that we are who we are not joined by a single immigration experience, a single experience of how we came to this country, like African American. We are not joined by a single language, like Latino, right? We are joined by the fact that out of all these different countries in Asia, and even the native peoples of the Pacific Islands and Hawaii, we have come to this country and we experience a common trajectory. Whether you are a refugee from Vietnam or Laos, right? Whether you're a 7th-generation Japanese American who descended from people who built the railroads in this country, whether you're a native person in the island, we experience this country in certain common ways. What are some of those ways, right? That we experience being treated as perpetual foreigners. We experience being treated as a model minority, which sounds like a compliment on its face, but it's actually an insult when people use it as an excuse not to help us, not to serve our communities, not to have government do the things it needs to do for us. So diversity is a value because look at how we come together. Look at this room. We value this diversity. We appreciate it. We've learned the lesson from Japanese internment all the way to 9/11 backlash that we cannot do this alone. We need to have each other's back. Diversity is a value. What are other values for our community? Respect. Respect for our elders, right? You heard Mr. Chan talk about his father and then talk about his son, this idea of a generational respect. By the way, when you talk about, that's a really good example of a good value and how it relates to issues. You talk about issues like Medicare, Social Security, tax breaks, education. You have to remember what's the value behind it. Respect is a perfect example. Why do we believe in Barack Obama's plan to save Medicare? And why do we oppose what Paul Ryan's trying to do? Because we believe Medicare is a symbol of respect between the generations. That you took care of us and now we take care of you. It is a fundamental Asian value, right? That we have a moral responsibility to take care of our elders. It's how we show respect for that generation. And any attempt by the government, by politicians, by false leaders to try and break that respect goes against our community values. That's how you take an issue and talk about it in terms of the values. Make sense? Talk about values. Don't just talk about issues. Issues are important. I don't doubt it. But sometimes we as progressives, we're so smart, and we want to talk about the issues, and we want to prove it with facts and figures and numbers and statistics, and if we forget the value behind it, we don't get the vote. And that's what the next 64 days are about. They're about getting as many voters to feel passionate about this election as possible. So, one lesson for you. Write this down in your notes. Good messages have 3 parts. Number 1, contrast. Us versus them. 12 years ago, I traveled all over this country to college campuses trying to get young people to vote for Al Gore. And I can't tell you how many campuses I went to where people or college students said to me, they're all corporate students anyway, right? Al Gore, George W. Bush doesn't really make much of a difference. Hell yeah, it makes a difference. Because the last 8 years, the last 12 years would have looked very, very different had we had a President Gore for 8 of them than a President Bush. But it was our failure. It was our failure as a party to not explain that difference. What is the contrast? Some of us don't like this. We think negative ads are bad and we don't want to talk about what's wrong with the other side. You've got it. It's not about attacking them for what's not real. It's about pointing out the real contrast. There are real differences in the way we see government and in the way they see government, and we need to talk about that. Contrast. That's number 1. Number 2, and this is the most important for our community, urgency. You've got to give them a sense of urgency. You're going to go home on Friday and you're going to start talking in your neighborhood. You're going to start talking to kids in your dorms. You're going to start talking to your parents. And they're going to say to you, Parag, what the hell are you doing here? The election's not till November. It's still September. Come talk to me in 6 weeks. And you're going to say, no, we got to talk now. Because this election is important. What happens in this election determines the next 20 years of our lives. We've got to have the conversation now. Voter registration deadline is coming up. We've got to do this now. Did you know that Asian Americans, of all the communities, of all the ethnic groups, white, black, Hispanic, Native American, Asian Americans are the most likely group to vote if they're registered to vote. 85% in high rates. If we're registered, we vote. You know why? Because for a lot of our population, immigrant population, it's a sign of great achievement. It's a sign of great pride. I registered to vote. I'm going to go vote. In 1980, my dad became a citizen. When the presidential election was happening, he was in a bus terminal. And a woman was handing out registration forms. Register to vote. Register to vote. He walked up to her and said, yes, I'm an American citizen. I'd like to vote. And she said, great. Republican? He said, okay. And he voted Republican for the next 20 years. These things matter. Who talks to you? Who engages you? Who shows that respect for your vote matters. Ever thought about the Irish Americans and how democratic they've been consistently for generations? You know why? Because when the potato famine happened and they got to the shores in Boston and New York Harbor, guess who met them first? The Democratic Party bosses. One table to help them find housing, one table to help them find jobs, one table to register them to vote. They didn't forget it. Not for 7, 8 generations. We got the Kennedys out. That's the power of showing their respect, but you've got to give them urgency. You've got to tell them why it matters. And last, third part, and this is the part that I think we fail at the most as Democrats, but we're getting better at it. Barack Obama is probably the best I've seen in the business. Vision. You've got to give them a vision for what their future looks like. Elections are not about the minutia. They're not about tit versus tat. It's not a game for people. Elections are about the future. And when we articulate a clear vision for what that future looks like, what does it look like for you as an individual? What does it look like for your family, your community, your state, and your country, your world? And we win the election. That's what makes good messages. Context, urgency, and vision. And by the way, I said Barack Obama is the best in the business of this. In 2008, what was the frame, the message of the campaign? One word.
Change.
Change, right? Hope and change, but change, right? But you gotta look beyond the surface. It wasn't just change. Think about it. Think about the signs that stand in front of the president when he's at a podium, right? It says change, and then underneath it, the beginning it said what? The change we can. Change we can believe in. Remember, in 2008, think back now, you all remember this. It was Hillary versus Obama in the primary, and he was talking about change, and one day Hillary realized, I'm a woman, I represent change too, so I'm for change as well. And so Barack Obama added the second line, which is change we can believe in. Because it was about trust, it was about integrity, right? It was about getting corruption out. It was about a new way of thinking about politics. Change we can believe in. Guys, that's contrast. Me versus them. That's a very not so subtle way of saying, here's the difference between us. We're both change, but I'm the change you can believe in. Then, when the economy collapsed on September 15th and John McCain didn't know what to do, and had like 3 completely different responses in 3 hours, what did the thing say? In that same evening, the podium sign changed. Change we need. Urgency. The country's falling apart. We need strong leadership. We need focused leadership. We need stable leadership. He can't provide it. I can't. I am going to offer you the change we need. This election matters. That was your urgency. And then the closing argument, the famous 30-minute ad that Barack Obama aired a week before the election, told the stories of the people that this election was about, the American people. His closing argument to the American people was the vision. Change we deserve. We're better than this. We're the greatest country on earth. We're better than this. We're better than that. I want to stand for the change we deserve. The change we all know we deserve. Elections are about the future. Contrast, urgency, vision. Good messages have that. And now my friend Toby Chaudhary is going to come and talk to you about what that message is for 2012. Thank you.